There might not be a more out-of-nowhere video game genre than the auto chess and auto battler genre. Yes, including evenly similar, also started as a mod, MOBA genre. Both of these genres would grow from the depths of the mod world of each of their respective games. Auto chess, or dubbed DOTA Auto Chess under their mod name, was developed by Johto Studio, taking inspiration from chess, mahjong, and naturally the namesake, Dota 2. DOTA Auto Chess was a mod within Dota 2, and within the same year it hit the web as a mod and saw over 8 million users. It would also launch in early access in June of 2019, dubbed DOTA Underlords, reaching millions of gamers on PC and mobile platforms. Within the next year, 3 more major competitors would launch to rival DOTA Underlords, such as Riot Games' Teamfight Tactics, Activision Blizzard's Hearthstone Battlegrounds, and finally the title made from the original creators of the mod, Auto Chess. DOTA Underlords might have had a meteoric rise to fame, spawning in the creation of a new industry essentially, but it fell victim to being the first in many ways, and within the first year of the game's lifecycle, lost over 80% of its population according to Steam charts. It's been nearly 2 years since Valve has updated DOTA Underlords now, which has many fans of the game left saying that the game is practically dead or trending towards that direction, in typical Valve fashion. With no good ending in sight for DOTA Underlords as it faces yet more Valve abandonment like a child it never loved, it finds itself featured on this episode of Death of a Game as we try to diagnose the largest contributing factors to the death of a game of the auto chess battler, DOTA Underlords. Grab your board, your heroes, and your pieces, and let's get involved in this unique blend of strategy, RNG, and your parents never loved you syndrome of a story. Detectives, we have a case to solve. Hello everybody, and thank you to Geology for sponsoring this video again. Geology is a 15-time award-winning, personalized skincare company recognized in Men's Health, Esquire, and Ask Men's Grooming Awards. They have 6,000 plus 5-star reviews, which obviously show that people love the product. Geology creates a simple and effective skincare and hair routine that's customized just for you, with ingredients that are proven to work. The products are built around just a handful of powerful but proven ingredients that have been tested by dermatologists for decades. Personally, I can have quite dry skin sometimes. When I use Geology's morning face wash, I haven't had that problem since. It really helps make me and my face feel refreshed in the morning. Not only is Geology the best in the skincare game, they've also released a bunch of new amazing hair and body and other skin products. Whatever you need, Geology has you covered. From affordable skin revitalizing vitamin C plus E plus ferulic acid serum to their shampoo killing co-wash, to their brand new body care of line body wash and deodorant, which honestly have some of the best scents ever, but that's just my opinion. If you're wondering how it works, well, you just click the link in the description that's provided and take a 30-second diagnostic quiz. And within a few clicks, you'll tell them about your skin and your goals. And their team of dermatologists will design a personalized routine just for you that's then shipped directly to your door. It's that simple. Right now, for a limited time, they're hooking you up with an absolutely insane offer. Use my code NERD70 and that will give you an additional 70% off of their award-winning skincare trial set. This discount stacks on top of other sale prices. And that's not all. On top of that, they're also giving you an additional bonus offer of one of their brand new skin, hair, or body products of your choice when you add it to your trial. But you have to get it before it's gone. So again, head to the description, use code NERD70, and take their free skincare diagnostic to get the 70% off. Thank you again to Geology for sponsoring this video, and thank you to the detectives who made it possible. Let's get back to the video. The story begins sometime after the launch of Dota 2. Dota 2, developed and published by Valve, has become essentially the biggest international MOBA, with over 1 million actives just on Steam in the Western world. Dota 2's success hasn't stopped yet, and is simply undeniable. January 2019, we would see history repeat itself when a talented Chinese-based developer, Johto Studio, would launch a mod on Dota 2 dubbed DOTA Auto Chess. This mod, much like Dota did originally as a Warcraft 3 mod, ironically, would change the fate of the video game industry going forward. DOTA Auto Chess would rack up a massive 670,000 players in no time, 100,000 being daily active players. These numbers weren't mod numbers anymore, they were AAA gaming numbers. And this was with a poor translation available too, as the mod was made and played primarily in Chinese. Like Dota 2, Dota Auto Chess was free, but besides utilizing the same world and lore, that's where the similarities kind of end. In fact, although chess is the name, Dota Auto Chess barely resembles actual chess, besides being on a board, which is actually 8x8, and being strategic, I guess. Drodo Studio would state that Mahjong was actually more of a proper influence, as well as the classic Warcraft 3 mod, Hero Line Wars, and then Legion TD. Play is based around drafting hands of heroes, combining them to upgrade them, and then deploying them correctly to win victories over 8 other players in a series of one-on-one matches. Each round of the game, you're drafted a random hand of heroes that you can buy using gold you've accumulated. Those heroes are then deployed to the grid and fight battles against each other. If you have 3 of the same hero, you can also create a more powerful version of it. The complexity comes primarily from the game's drafting phase, which is timed and happens simultaneously with the other players with a limited amount of hero counts. The strategy consists of trying to beat your enemies as easily and cheaply as possible, but since Dota Auto Chess was round-based, you wanted to be careful with how much gold you were going to spend. Every round, either a clone of another player's board or a neutral creep would appear on your board. They would fight, and if you kill them, you are granted more gold. If your units die, you lose HP, and the live enemy units and the board get to reset to pre-fight. Repeat this for every round until a victor is essentially selected. The ultimate uniqueness of auto chess in the auto battler genre comes from games never playing the same way, due to a combination of RNG, variety in the draft we just mentioned, and strategy. On top of the game not requiring any kind of mechanical skill at all, which was a stark contrast to the MOBA industry. Theoretically, it was much more accessible. Dota Auto Chess by 2019 of April would rack up an impressive 8 million players. Suddenly, once again, we were in a Warcraft 3 Defense of the Ancient situation. The developers of the mod were looking to create a game of their own, and Valve was interested in teaming up with them. Sounds like deja vu. The two would not find proper terms though, with no evidence being stated as to why. Though my guess is monetization functions kind of differently in the West versus the East, and you'll see that later on with Auto Chess once it releases. Instead, what would happen was Drodo Studio would go on to create their own Auto Chess title dubbed literally just Auto Chess. Fair enough, you kind of created the industry. Meanwhile, Valve would continue full steam ahead with the rights to their Dota name and characters and create a Dota-based auto chess later dubbed Dota Underlords, our very subject matter of the video. Again, a weird similarity exists here with this genre and the MOBA genre, where Blizzard and Valve not only made separate MOBAs that competed against each other, they even had legal battles over the name of it. Auto Chess would have its open beta in April of 2019, being the first auto battler to the market, and would always be destined to be a thorn in the side of Dota Underlords. Drodo's Auto Chess would launch on PC as an Epic exclusive set later in the year. This created, much like the MOBA scene, an incredibly interesting situation where almost immediately you have 2 titles that are destined for competition between each other. And Valve and Drodo wouldn't be the only ones set to sense the birth of a new genre. Riot and Activision also got whiffs of the thing as well, and at this point it was now a rush to the market for the giant corporations trying to cash in on the birth of a new genre. Competition was incredibly fierce, and things were going to get ugly amongst these competing titles. But over the summer of 2019, seemingly overnight, the auto chess genre had arrived. Dota Underlords would strike second, launching in early access June 2019. Dota Underlords would feature a quite similar approach to the original mod and subsequent game, Auto Chess. In fact, PC Gamer would state that besides Underlords' superior visuals and Auto Chess's superior game client and UI, the games were identical. Some heroes even had the same abilities. PC Gamer would warn that the 2 titles being similar was worrying for Valve, as Drodo had heavily updated their game in a short amount of time, already pacing themselves in some ways from Dota Underlords. GameSpot, one of the few outlets to actually cover the game, would give it an impressive 9 out of 10, stating that the game's strengths came from the parity and no game ever playing the same way, as well as the strategic depth present in the game that made outplaying your opponents quite satisfying. The largest negatives were also related to the positives in the sense that the RNG was decried. But alas, that's kind of the whole idea of the auto chess genre, despite the alluring of it sounding so strategic due to having chess in the name. Within a day, Dota Underlords was already beating their Valve stablemate, Artifacts numbers. A video I also covered on the series, so check that out. You might also learn a few clues for this episode. Within the first week of the game, there was 200,000 active players and 1.5 million downloads. Did Valve once again beat competitors to the punch like they did with Dota? For the most successful auto-battler this time? Boom. Yeah, I'm making a sound effect to signify what happens next. And when I say next, I'm talking mere days. Riot Games would launch an auto chess game of their own, featuring their extensive champions and lore. Teamfight Tactics, as it was dubbed, launched the 26th of June of 2019. TFT, as often dubbed, would take the world by storm, obtaining an even larger fan base than Dota Underlords. The main differences between the games would be that TFT would focus a lot more on items and customization to affect your board, and the fact that it was a 6-player game versus an 8-player game in Dota Underlords. TFT smartly chose to make something unique enough as to not closely be compared to the founder in the genre, auto chess, and the results were amazing. TFT wasn't the only auto-battler giving Dota Underlords trouble either. Sure, we know about auto chess, but there's also Hearthstone's Battlegrounds, which would attempt a version of their own. This is what corporations do, ultimately. They use their immense power and resources to follow a trend way faster than anyone else really can. Dota Underlords' first major update would come August 13th, 2019, and it introduced ranked, achievements, 1 vs 1, a casual mode for those not interested in hardcore competition. There were a number of positive changes that came from this update. At this point, Dota Underlords was an early access title, which meant that its major updates to come first would be more likely to put the game into a more complete game. Whether or not Valve would keep up their update schedule though, and Dota Underlords or DU would get to that completed state though, was a serious question. Meanwhile, their competition and creator of the genre, Auto Chess, was officially launching August 23rd with a better UI than their competitors and a more consistent client on all platforms. Another serious competitor enters the picture, perhaps the most serious. DOTA Studios' dedication to updating their game was outmatched, outperforming even Riot Games, which seemed to be a key component of the auto chess genre, to keep the gameplay fresh and novel to an extent. The course of history for Dota Underlords, including the balance history, would make a massive change on their second major update, October 22nd, 2019. They would introduce their biggest gameplay change yet, Underlords, as the game was named after. 2 Underlords, Essex and Hobgen, would be released. The October 2019 update would feature a duo mode for matchmaking and the much appreciated jail system, which would help rotate out heroes every 24 hours. This kept the meta from getting too stale. But while the jail system was seen positively, the Underlords were almost always controversial, as it greatly added more mechanics and strategy to the game. There's a careful balance there, because although Dota Underlords was strategic, and it was sold that way, if they went too strategic, they might lose the more casual audience or frustrate the player base once they bring them in, which is the lifeblood of such a genre. Valve would largely undo this progress when they would remove the jail system, December 2019, as well as introduce a powerful hybrid Underlord named Joel. According to the patch notes and Steam reviews, the Joel update is described as a significant change in the game's vision and flow of combat, and DU's last major update. Joel for some fans was the beginning of the end. Whether that was because there was not many more Underlords that were released after, or because it changed the balance in a way that turned many players off. Dota Underlords might be a strategic game, but if Valve wanted to maintain that, they were going to have to constantly keep updating and balancing the game, something they weren't proving keen on doing. Riot Games reportedly was firing off updates time and time again. As we said previously, the Joel update is when we see a slow in the content for Dota Underlords, as population dwindles to a peak of just 20,000 players. Was the game as a service neutering Dota Underlords past the point of repair, due to them having to have minimums on when content can be delivered on based around a battle pass, which is seasonal monetization? This is something that has plagued many GAS titles before. There's something to be said about this, as the game was free and was relying on things like the aforementioned battle pass and skins to survive. With the population already so low, there were concerns that Dota Underlord would ever even get to its best state. Dota Underlord's last Underlord was launched in January of 2020, dubbed Inno, which kind of answers our concerns or heightens them, right? Dota Underlords would have its official launch February 25th, 2020, where it would introduce the Battle Pass for Season 1, which was accompanied with a story campaign mission where you would unlock rewards for your Battle Pass. They would also introduce puzzles and new items. The city crawl content was good content, introducing single-player content for the first time to the game, but the game launched with none, and this was its first story update, so it felt like a little bit too late for the beginning of 2020. Dota Underlords' New Blood on the Street update would add a number of new heroes and alliances, as well as returning some of them to the fold. This update would also include the rank reset, as well as rotate out a number of items and heroes. It seems that even though Valve got rid of the jail system, they were still forcing the hand of variety and rotating heroes in and out themselves. This feels like a mixed message to me. This update would increase the population, though, just only slightly, to a very low 12,000 peak players now. Dota Underlords' last update would come November 19th, 2020, which was a few alliance and hero balance updates. Dota Underlords would struggle through 2020, ending with a population peak of 8,000 peak players. Like we always say on the series when covering a game as a service, once the player base starts to dry up, it seals the deal for the content schedule that was promised going forward for a AAA developed game. In a hilarious bit of closing off the time loop, Johto Studio would announce their desire to create a MOBA of their own. January 19th, 2021. Johto would state a desire to use their high-quality models from Auto Chess and put them to purpose in a MOBA, which they described as ultimately their roots. Johto's title would likely be like Auto Chess, focused in the Eastern market, but Dota Underlords would continue at this time to drop in population, now down to just 6,300 players peak. By the end of that same year, Valve had, through the use of the classic Valve euphemism, extended Season 1 end date to 2031, which, as Clayton states, the writer for PC Gamer, is effectively the same as the game being put into maintenance mode, as the Season 1 would be stretched, essentially, indefinitely, to 2031. 1 year and 6 months later, Dota Underlord would have its content cycle severed, and see no more major or even minor updates. In classic Valve fashion, they had quietly given up on the game, much like they did with Artifact as well. The "I hope everyone just sort of forgets" thing. But since this isn't their first time doing it, I truly believe that not giving DU proper support was a huge blow to the community's perception and approval of Valve as a developer. At this point, it's fairly unlikely for them to do such a trend-chasing development job again. They've had pretty disastrous results. While Dota Underlords was essentially shelved, Teamfight Tactics, one of their biggest competitors, was still shining in August of 2022, with reports of over 80 million players, 2.5 billion hours played, and more than 10 million mobile downloads. While arguably you could say that the competition was over some time ago, by the fall of 2022, it seemed to be all but a done deal. TFT had dominated Dota Underlords, managing to outperform them significantly. Having such a direct competitor outperform you in such a way was a death blow for Dota Underlords, because they didn't just lose to TFT, they also lost to Auto Chess. DU came out swinging, sure, but was promptly put down and out within a short amount of time, with the population down to, at this time, a staggeringly low 3,000 players. Before we get to the final deduction with that catchy detective music, we should cover something that was hinted at throughout the video. With Valve abandoning Dota Underlords, there has to be another question asked, much like with Artifact, which was seemingly trying to cash in on the CCG craze. The question is, where was the passion? Where was the dedication and willingness to stick it out and try? If I'm being absolutely charitable, perhaps it's an issue of monetization, and how that affects design and content. Even if developers want to keep working on it and inject more content, because they chose to use a game as a service model, they were unable to. But I have to wager that some of this is also because of a lack of passion. After all, the original team working on Dota Auto Chess wasn't the team working on the game. The developers were primarily Dota 2 developers, which, besides a nice paycheck, might not have the same enthusiasm to work on a game they didn't necessarily choose. Compare this to TFT, who is much more practiced at doing this, or Auto Chess, the original devs, and passion just seems severely lacking in the case of Dota Underlords. And that very likely has a lot of effects, like stifling innovation, and well, the willingness to go further than most. Something else I want to cover too is the difference between creating real hype and manufacturing artificial hype. With the auto chess genre, we have one that sprang up faster than even the MOBA genre did. But this time, the corporations were ready for it. They put their plans into action much earlier than before a proper community was really even created. The mod wasn't even out for a year, right? And even if a proper community was created, they were splintered off into so many other games. So in a sense, Dota Underlords had little community from the first place. Just what was left from Dota Studios and maybe the interest from that in the genre. Dota Underlords managed to create a massive amount of artificial hype, whether through name recognition, advertising budget, and etc. But they didn't do it through the strength of the community and the game they're in. You might get an audience from doing that, but they won't be very loyal, which is not helpful in an online multiplayer game. You have to treat your audience like more than just customers, and Dota Underlords just didn't do that. That music. Oh, it's so good to hear that music again. That means that we have obtained enough clues and evidence thus far in the video to prepare our final deduction and put the case to bed of why Dota Underlords failed. Lacked passion and felt mostly like a trend chaser. Didn't have proper content support and was abandoned. Conflicting game message and theme. Original creator of the mod became their biggest competitor alongside TFT. Artificially created hype and a poor community. Valve has passion. They have a track record. While old and ancient at this point, that's existed at some point, right? It's out there. The new Valve, the more corporatized and Steam store successful Valve, has more interest in making money, it seems, versus the straight art aspects that they were kind of known for, including with their engine. While some might say that this should be, well, how a company gets, especially when it's trying to scale up, Valve has routinely shown the weaknesses of this shift when attempting to make cash-in titles that chase the cheddar. They don't have the passion or content schedule dedication to stick the games out, or have shown it yet, and they merely want to dip their toes in to see if they can get soaked versus wet, if you get my analogy. At this point, it barely seems like they have enough passion for an original project, considering they haven't done one in some time. Valve just seems content with collecting the massive amounts of money they get from the game store, and who can blame them? I mean, it's that much money, right? Or something or whatever. In the end, Dota Underlords, like Artifact though, will be as forgotten as the quarterly earnings that they reported and celebrated upon each game's successful points. Thanks for watching, detectives.